I am Marcella Dominguez. I'm a trademark lawyer that helps small and medium-sized companies protect their brands online and also offline. So for most people, that means answering a lot of questions about company names, logos, slogans, taglines, and how to actually protect those before you have a registered trademark and also after you have a registered trademark.
And I know that oftentimes the legal aspect of starting a business overwhelms people and intimidates them into starting because they're just not sure where to go, how to start, especially with the legal jargon and, the trademarks, the copyrights. When do I start it? Can someone still infringe upon anything that I've started? So do you have any go-to tips for what's necessary in the beginning stages of starting your business? What's absolutely mandatory that you should do, and what can you kind of save off until later?
That's a really great question. So I think that the first thing you need to do is at least do a search on the trademark website to make sure that the name you have chosen isn't already registered. And the reason that's important is because I'm going to give you an example of Dove. Many of you recognize it as a soap brand, and others might recognize it as a chocolate brand. And so the reason that a name like Dove can exist in those two categories is because they have nothing to do with each other. Now, if that happens to be the case for you when you do a trademark search, you might find a name that's similar to the one you've chosen in a category that has nothing to do with yours, in which case it might be okay to move forward. But the reason you do the search is because you might find someone that's already registered it using a similar product, a similar service that's going to be an issue for you down the road. And you don't want to find out about that issue after you've already invested hundreds of dollars. You want to find out before you make the investment.
So for us, for example, Good Girls Gone Boss, we are a community. So if we found out that there was like a shoe store that's using Good Girls Gone Boss, would that be an infringement on the trademark, or would that be totally fine?
That's a great question. And so you're always going to have to ask yourself that question. Is that other registration, is it similar enough to mine that it would cause confusion in the marketplace for somebody who knows nothing about either brand? And in your case, you have a very unique stance kind of with online entrepreneurs in that you have females who are listening and tuning in. And so is it that far-fetched that down the line you would also offer shoes or accessories or clothing? Because if it's not that far-fetched, considering your unique stance in the marketplace, it might not be that far-fetched. And so the answer is yes, it could be a problem. But if you're not even thinking about that, and if the trademark examiner doesn't feel like there's a potential or likelihood of confusion, then they might just let you have a smooth sailing journey. And so it's kind of a twofold question. Do you think there's an issue? And also, would the trademark examiner think there's an issue? And those two answers might be in conflict with each other. And at that point, you have to decide whether you would just take the risk.
Okay, right? That's very interesting and insightful to know. But I'm glad that you brought up online entrepreneurship, because one of the questions that came up when I had asked was for online entrepreneurs, whether it be influencers, e-commerce owners, or coaches, is the trademark process different?
No, the trademark process is the same for everybody, whether you're a service-based business or a product-based business. The only difference that you will encounter is in the category or identification of goods and services. So how you describe your trademark being used is the only difference. You're going to indicate products, or you might indicate services, but other than that, everything else is the same.
What about the borders? So you can trademark in Canada, and then you can also trademark in the States. So how does that become an issue with doing business online? Because someone could have a brand called Allure Shoes, using shoes again. Shoes are on my brain today. So Allure Shoes on one hand, and then there's another Allure Shoes in Florida, but Allure Shoes in Toronto as well. So how does that work?
Yeah, that's another great question, because with so many people using online websites now to sell their products and services, you kind of do start to get into this gray area that trademark laws haven't really touched upon. I mean, is it okay to have an online presence where you're primarily marketing to the US, or does that count as use in Canada also? Does your brand that starts in Canada also count in the USA? To be honest with you, in my opinion, it is an affirmative answer if you ask yourself, hey, I started my online business in Canada, but my clients are everywhere. They're worldwide. They could be in the Caribbean, in Asia, Europe, the United States. And so in that sense, I would say that yes, your business should constitute use in the US if you have US-based clients.
Another question that came up was, what exactly does a business, or what role does a business attorney play for new businesses, creatives, influencers, and etc.?
This might not be the answer that you're expecting, but the reality is that you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know about something, how in the world are you going to ask about it? If you're an influencer who's initiating their first contract with a big sponsor, how in the world are you going to know what to ask if this is your first time doing it? You know, it's like everything. You can't expect to go into elementary school knowing what you're going to learn in K through 5. You can't expect to start anything and know the answers. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. That's not how it starts. When you start off, you know nothing, and you assume you know nothing, because then you seek answers from people who do know the answers, that have been there, that have done that are subject matter experts in that field. So yeah, when you're just starting out, I think it's really important to at least follow these people on social media who do know what they're talking about, who have been there, done that, who maybe have a couple sponsorships that you haven't had, and ask them questions. Lots of times lawyers offer free consultations. Other influencers who have had sponsorships will offer you the answers to the situation that you're barely encountering for the first time.
Yeah. Another question is, when do you know that it's time to hire a lawyer? Because, you know, in the initial stages, you're just starting your business, budgets are tight. So how do you know that it's time to now invest, or are there steps that you can maybe take on your own to kind of combat the initial cost? What would you say on that?
Yeah, it's true that sometimes when you're starting out, you don't necessarily have the budget to go and hire a lawyer, especially a very expensive lawyer. So keep that in mind, that not all lawyers have the same prices. And so what we did differently at our law firm is that we definitely recognized that need, and we started offering DIY options. So if you go to, you know, like our website, MARCELLA TM /trademark it, you will see that there you can follow a DIY application process where we'll actually walk you through it so that you know how to answer. And that's at a fraction of the cost that it would cost you at some other law firm to hire the attorney directly. Now, we offer both of those options through our law firm. But anyway, all that to say that we do recognize that there's still that question lingering of like, okay, well, when do I go from the DIY service to actually hiring the lawyer? Because you can file a DIY trademark application. You can send a cease and desist letter on your own. You can follow our trademark checklist and renew your trademark on your own. But I think that the question doesn't necessarily have to do with knowledge as much as it does with recognizing that an entrepreneur always spends either time or money throughout their business lifetime and throughout their journey. So in the beginning, you might have more time than you do money, but do you have enough time to figure out how to do it properly? So then that's where the knowledge aspect does come in. Further down the line, you might have more knowledge because you have more experience, you've done the trademark application on your own. But at that point, the question is more, I don't have the time because I'd rather focus my energy on making money and promoting my brand, as opposed to trying to do like a one-time trademark transaction that I'm never going to repeat again in my business. You'll recognize that it's less about time and it's more about efficiency in your business. So I think that you need to ask yourself, where am I? If I have more time to learn this properly and I don't have money, then maybe I should be looking at the DIY route. But maybe if I have more money and less time, then maybe that's when I know I need to hire a lawyer, because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have time to invest in doing it properly. And I have a few more resources now.
So I hear of incidences when someone will try to apply for the trademark on their own, then they find out that they've done something correctly. So what are some common mistakes that you often see when people are like, they come to you mid trademark process, like, hey, I messed this up. Can you please help me, Marcella?